really couldn't imagine myself or envision myself holding a huge amount of money because I thought that having a lot of money was bad, having a lot of power was bad, and being successful was bad. When I wrote this reflection, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. It makes sense to me now. I needed to change the way I saw money and power in order for me to receive money and power. My heart needed to change first. The transformation within needed to happen first before I could hold and steward money and power. Hi there. My name is Trish or Patri, depending on where in the world we meet. Officially, it's Patricia, which means noble. I don't come from royalty, but I am the daughter of the King of Kings. This is Into the Woods of Faith and Entrepreneurship, where getting lost is the first step to being found. Oh, what a beautiful day. You'll probably pick up some sounds from the birds. Can you hear that? Like that, just like that. Because I am sitting under this tree. I am joining you today from a beautiful park in Madrid, Spain. If you are here for the first time, a very, very warm welcome to you and a big hug. If you are coming back, welcome back. Today's reflection, as you can see in the title of this podcast, today's reflection is one of the most important, if not the most important belief that anyone pursuing business can have. And there's just this one thing that I think, in my opinion, is the maker or breaker of one's success in business. And it is the belief that you have around money, power, and success. I'm going to say that again. Money, power, and success. I know these are big words, money, power, and success. And it's the reason why I decided to share this reflection with you today, because in the last couple of weeks, I have been intentionally slowing down. And when I say slowing down in business is what I mean. I was taking less calls. Oh, there was a fly. So everything that's coming is unscripted. It's not planned. I have no specific agenda except to share the reflection that I have written on my journal. You know, as I am recording outdoors in nature, you can expect to have some interruptions. They're not really interruptions because they're part of where I am right now. So you'll probably be hearing some birds here and there. You'll see me move from time to time because there will be some ants crawling, some bees, some flies. But, you know, they're all part of this episode. We'll stay in focus and let everything that wants to be part of this episode be part of this episode. So I have been intentionally slowing down, meaning I was taking less calls. I was taking less hours of work. And actually, there were days that I was actually not working at all. You know, if you live in Europe, you know that summer, and I'm recording this in August, so you know that they take their summer seriously. I am from the Philippines, and I now live in Spain. In August, in that side of the world, things are going on as usual because that is not summer. It's actually rainy season. And so when I moved here, I was like, oh gosh, everyone is gone. Like they take their summer seriously. And so most of my clients are on a holiday as well. And so I'm like, okay, why don't I take this time to slow down and reflect and see where I'm at? And that's what I did. And I keep this journal. I like to write, actually, not write, scribble or draw. So I was looking at previous pages and I saw this one page that was just extra messy. And it says there, the number one challenge of entrepreneurs, double underline. Beside entrepreneurs, there were 3 lines that seemed like arrows pointing to different things. The first arrow pointed to what it says, leads. The second arrow was pointing to, what was that? You see, I write so terribly that I can't even understand what I wrote. Okay, so leads, the first one. The second one said sales. And then the third arrow said skills. So if you think about that thought, the message that I was writing for myself was, what's the number one challenge of entrepreneurs? It's some form of leads, sales, or skills. But then I looked again, and there was a huge X mark on those 3 things. And then there was an arrow down after the X. And that arrow down says money, power, and success. And so I was trying to recall why I wrote that and actually what that means. Let's just say my memory is quite limited to the present moment. So I was reflecting and trying to recall the moment I wrote this. And then I saw the date. And it was at the beginning of 2025. And so I was like, oh, I think I remember now why I wrote that. At that time, the beginning of 2025, I shifted my business. I like to experiment. If you really knew me, you know that I approach business with an experimentative mindset. And I do this because it works very well for me, because it removes the fear, building a business. If you have your own business, if you are in this realm of entrepreneurship, really there's nothing certain. There's nothing certain. I would say almost everything in our business, we only have control of some of the things, but most of the things we don't have control over. And that's also the reason why, faith is so important. But that's another topic for another day. Where was I? What was the point I was telling you? I got distracted by just this beautiful, beautiful greeneries in front of me. I wish you could see it. But it is full of trees, and it's a quiet morning. There are very few people in here, which is not normal, not usual. And so I'm just really enjoying this time here in nature. And you should too. Like, if you're listening to this right now, go for a walk, go outside, put on your earphones, just listen to me and go for a walk. Actually, I would love for you to do that. I invite you to do that. Take some time for yourself to be in nature, because it's so beautiful and healing and energizing. Let me just take a breath for a second here. Okay, let me come back to my point here. So what I was saying was that I shifted my business at the beginning of this year. And what shifted was the niche, the avatar that I was targeting changed. And it changed because of the data that I have received through the experimentations I did the previous year, 2024 and 2023. 2023, I moved to Europe, and that move came with the decision to also move my business here in this side of the world, which means I needed to build something from nothing. I needed to start from scratch, zero connection at all. I knew a handful of people. I can count the number of people in my one hand who are based in Europe when I was in the other side of the world. So before moving to Spain, we were living in Thailand. And so I needed to just start from zero, really do the groundwork, prepare the groundwork, prepare the soil so that I can plant proper seeds and see which one grows. That's what I was doing really for the first 2 years of my business. And let me tell you now, I did not profit. There was no sustainable profit. When I saw the notes, the reflection that I have written down in my journal, I was like, oh, that was the time when I realized that the real challenge of anyone building a business in today's world is not leads, it's not sales, it's not some skills, because I'm not dismissing the importance of those. That's important, and I see that as a challenge, but that is the result of the real challenge. That's what we see on the outside. That's the effect. That's the tip of the iceberg, in other words. That's not the real challenge. I realized that the real challenge that was holding me back from having a sustainable income, from having the money, sustainable flow of income, what was holding me back was my own belief around money, power, and success. During those 2 years, I realized that I really couldn't imagine myself or envision myself holding a huge amount of money, because I thought that it was bad. Having a lot of money was bad. Having a lot of power was bad. And being successful was bad. So I was coming from years and years and years of a belief around money. Now, just God has really shown me the truth. When it has been revealed to me what my role was, like everything started to change. And I realized that I, along with many entrepreneurs in today's world, we have been called to be stewards, instruments, channels, conduits. So if you think about yourself in that perspective, money, power, and success becomes something that you hold, something that you steward, not for yourself, but for the people around you. And so at that time that I have written this reflection, obviously I was just like lost. When you are in the journey of something, it's really hard to see and become aware of everything while you're in the journey, because your sight is so limited to what your next step will be. It's so limited to what is happening within you and in you, and especially when the journey gets challenging. But when you come out of that turbulence, let's say, when you just step out of that kind of dark alley and you look back, and you're like, oh, oh, now I get it. Like, okay, now it makes sense. And that's what I felt when I wrote this reflection. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. It makes sense to me now. I needed to change the way I saw money and power in order for me to receive that money and power. My heart needed to change first. The transformation within needed to happen first before I could hold and steward money and power. And I know that it's very difficult. If you just look and open your eyes, there's so many things you can see around money, power, and success that's not right. And therefore, it makes sense to me that most people I know around me right now have this resistance, have this like icky feeling around money and power and success that's holding them back, really. That's holding them back from the sustainable income that they want to and that they need to receive in order to keep their business moving forward. Somewhere along this timeline, I met this person who was running a community. It was a community for coaches and consultants in the sustainability space. At that time, when I met them, there were, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like 200 people in the community that they were holding. And, they knew a bit about me. They saw, my business background, what I was doing, and they wanted to, have a chat with me to get my opinion or my advice around community building, how to monetize the community, etc., etc. So I remember we had a call. So I asked them what they wanted. What was the challenge? And they said they have been shouldering the expenses of the community for a while now, and they have grown to 200 members, and it's not sustainable for them anymore. Obviously, there's, expenses for the tech platform, the community platform itself. And you have Zoom and you have all these other things. In order for the community to keep going, that needs to be sustained. And I started to ask, okay, so how much is the total expenses? How much would you like to make? How much is an okay number for you to charge your members? And I remember the answer of one of the founders. They said, wait a minute, Trish. I just wanted to be clear that we're not having this conversation to make money. We're having this conversation to find a way to sustain the community. After the conversation, I felt the tension. I felt there was this strong resistance. There was this negative energy. And after that call, I felt it. I took that feeling from the online call to myself after the call when we ended the call. And I was asking myself, like, oh, what is this feeling? Like, why am I feeling this? What is this negative feeling? And I couldn't shake it off. I was like, what is this? I just couldn't shake it off. And I was like, oh. And then I realized that the people running the community, those who were in that conversation, had beliefs around money that was not healthy, which was holding them back from making a plan to sustain the community needed in the moment. They said, we're not really about making money. We're just here to sustain the community. And if you really think about that for a moment, like if you really think about that, what does the community need to be sustained? Money. They needed to pay for the platform. They needed to pay for Zoom. They needed to pay for the time of the people who are facilitating different sessions in the community. I get what they mean, that they're not about making profit, that they're about sustaining the community. But just the use of the word money, just the belief around money, it was not healthy. It was not serving them at that moment. And so that's just another example of how the belief around money, power, and success is just really so important. And like what I said earlier, when you are in that journey, it's really hard to see beyond. And I think that's what happened to me. I was not able to sustainably profit for 2 years because I was so in my world that I only realized after everything I've gone through, after all the experiments, after all the testing, after all the moving around, it's only when I realized, like, oh my gosh, my belief around money was not serving me. I couldn't imagine myself, I couldn't envision myself holding a lot of money. And so, that really needed to change. And so when I realized that, I needed to take action. It's not something that happened magically. Like the result of that realization needed to take place, and therefore action was needed. And it's like that layer that you unveil step by step, one by one, until you reach the point of like, okay, this is a good place for me at the moment. And maybe I'm going different ways here with my reflection. I don't have a script or agenda whatsoever. And so sometimes I can go, different ways and come back to our main reflection for the day. Well, what I really want to say here is that money, power, and success, they're probably not what you think they are. I'm sharing this reflection to invite you to reflect. So I want to do it with you together through a framework I call AYA, which stands for attention, intention, action. Let me say that again. Attention, intention, action. So let's begin with attention. So pay attention to the words money, power, and success. When you start to think about those words, what shows up for you? Where's your attention focused at when you think about money, power, and success? For me, my attention directly goes to stewardship. How can I take this money that I have, the power that I've been given, and the success that I now have, how can I make this a force for good? How can I share this? How can I give this? Like, that's where my attention goes. What about you? Where does your attention go? And so let's go to intention. If you haven't yet, now would be a great time to set intention around money, power, and success. So think about these words: money, power, and success. What intention do you have for yourself around these? What's the intention around money, power, and success? For me, what shows up, my intention around money, power, and success, it's number one, it's a way. The intention is they transform me. They make me into a better human being. My heart is really opened, challenged, tested. And there is that inner transformation that happens when I think about money, power, and success. And it's my intention. Every time I receive money, power, and success, however success looks like for you, I allow it to transform me into a much better human being. And let's go to the last A, action. Take action. So what are a few steps, or maybe even one step that you can take today, right now, as you are listening to this, that will allow you to step into the intention you've set. What does that look like? What do you need to do? What must be done in order to have a better belief around money, power, and success? For me, the action that I needed to take was to really start my day by meditating and praying, so that whatever comes my way that day will be according to my faith and not according to my own might or my own strength or my own sight. That was the action that I needed to take. How about you? What is the action that you must take? So I'll leave this reflection for now and let it sit with you. I hope it encouraged you, inspired you, and brought light into your life and challenged your belief around money, power, and success. And if you find these themes interesting, money, power, and success, we are running what we call discussion circles inside The Garden. The Garden is a community for creators, coaches, and consultants who are building businesses by heart, from heart, with a heart. And one of the different gatherings we do there is what we call discussion circles. And we have been discussing money, power, and success and what it looks like. If you want to join those very interesting and enriching discussions, head over to deeplyrooted.space/the garden. deeplyrooted.space/the garden. And you can join for free at no cost to you. That's our reflection for today. Be well. Ciao for now.